We are learning a lot about the controversy surrounding college football, and I'm going to tell you everything that I believe I know about those circumstances here momentarily. But first, right off the top of the show, we have big news. And that big news is this. The President of the United States, Donald Trump, is scheduled to join us at 8 a.m. Eastern, 5 a.m. Pacific, live on the radio program. Now, that's obviously a huge deal. I am extremely excited about it. I'm extremely excited about what it says about the growth of our radio show, that the President of the United States is picking us to come on in all of Sports Talk Radio to speak with live on the radio about college football and other sports-related issues. But I'm also nervous because I'm excited to interview the President. I've never done that before. It's something that certainly if you're in the media, very few people ever get to do in their career. And certainly if you're in Sports Talk Radio, it doesn't happen that often. But also because I'm constantly clicking refresh on my Twitter feed even more often than usual, because when you've got the President scheduled, anything can happen, right? Like, I knew this was going to happen yesterday, and I'm scrolling through Twitter like, hey, let's just have a calm night. Let's just have nothing happen in the world, no major incidents. And then I see that they just rushed the President out of his press conference at the White House yesterday, and that he was abruptly taken off the stage. And I'm like, oh, my God, what's going on? And then it comes out that there was a shooting. He came back and he did the press conference. But I was like, well, there goes our interview. Something big has happened. They had to take the President out of his press briefing. There's no telling what might be going on. So I have been like a hawk, basically not sleeping at all, watching all of this unfold, and this is obviously a really exciting part of the show. Now, between now and then, we got a lot going on. Jason Whitlock is going to come and hang out. We had a great show yesterday talking about all the drama in college football. We're going to continue to talk about that a lot today, but in particular, I want to go ahead and say right off the top, I understand everybody doesn't love Donald Trump. A lot of you do, a lot of you don't. That happens with every single president. And I have said this for years, and maybe I'm one of the last people on the planet who actually believes this, but I root for every president to succeed. Whether it was Barack Obama, Ronald Reagan, George W. Bush, George Bush, Bill Clinton, everybody who has been president during my life, whether I voted for them or not, I want them to succeed. I've been straightforward about that. I want Donald Trump to succeed because he's the president, and I also am of the opinion that if you get an opportunity to visit the White House or you get an opportunity to have the President of the United States on your show, you take it a billion times out of a billion. And so I am not going to apologize to anybody who is upset or they're triggered or they're like, oh, my God, this is a sports show. Why would you have the president on? My response would be, because he's the president. And I'm never going to apologize for that. So if it triggers you, it upsets you, you are welcome to go and listen to somebody else's show today, or for the rest of your life for all that matters, because I'm not particularly concerned about your opinion on this because I'm making it, and I think it's a good one, and I'm excited about it. I'm super excited about it. I don't get nervous very often about the idea of an interview, but last night I was on pins and needles, so excited about being able to do this interview. We've been doing this show almost 5 years, and it takes a lot for me to be excited and or nervous about doing the show because I do it for 3 hours Monday through Friday every day with you. But this is next level. I'm excited for what it represents for the show, for everybody out there who works on the show, Danny G, Dub, Roberto, Eddie Garcia. This is a big moment for Outkick, and frankly, it's a big moment for Fox Sports Radio as well to have the sitting president of the United States come on live with us on the program. Now, anything could happen. So just because it's scheduled, they told me I couldn't even say anything to anybody about it until it is actually, we were coming live on the radio this morning. So just because it's actually scheduled, again, crazy things can happen. As you can well imagine, the president's schedule is always in flux given what could be going on around the world. So I'm not 100% certain it's going to happen. And by the way, I'm not 100% confident in anything on this show. I'm already nervous. Yesterday when I texted Danny G about this, I was like, I am so nervous about our phones. I am so nervous about every single aspect of this interview in terms of just the tech background, because there are so many things that regularly go wrong on this. The idea that the White House is going to be calling Danny G with the president waiting is nerve-wracking to the nth degree for me, just because of what could possibly go wrong with our phones. But I am also super excited, and I mean, again, a big part of why this interview is happening is because of the massive growth that we have seen with Outkick in the 5 years almost that we have been doing this show. We're about to start on our 5th full year, and obviously you guys are a huge component of why this is happening as well. So it should be outstanding. My fingers are crossed, a little bit less than 2 hours. If you are a regular person who's in your car, and a regular listener, and you're in your car and you're only in here for like 15 minutes and you got to go into work, I would encourage you to go download the podcast. You can go listen by hour now. Donald Trump, in theory, is going to be the lead of hour number 3. And I think you're probably going to enjoy that interview. I'm certainly excited to do it. So if you're only in your car for a few minutes, then that is what you will miss and why you should download the podcast like millions of you are doing every single month on this radio program. All that's positive. All right, so I am super excited about that, but we've got a show to do until that moment arrives. And this is going to be a good show in the meantime because, like I said, we've got Jason Whitlock on with us. And usually we have Mondays with Whitlock, but there was so much zaniness in college football yesterday that Jason Whitlock is going to be joining us live here in a little bit to do Tuesdays with Whitlock. And by the way, we may move Jason Whitlock to Wednesdays as it gets closer to college football, hopefully, and the NFL going on. And the reason why we would be doing that is because there's a lot of news typically on Monday, and Wednesdays with Whitlock sounds like it has a nice ring to it. By the way, Jason Whitlock's own podcast is going to debut soon. So that is sort of the housekeeping for the program. I'm excited to be able to announce it. It's out there publicly. Fingers crossed that everything's going to go well, and we'll be talking to the president to start off the 3rd hour of the program today. And we got a lot to discuss with him, and I'm super excited about that. But there also are major stories in the world of sports that this show has been intimately involved in following, and that has to do with college football. So yesterday was one of the wildest days on Twitter for college football that I can ever remember. And you know it's wild when you have programs like the University of Nebraska and certainly like Ohio State that are essentially saying, if the Big Ten is not going to play football, then we will find some other way to play football because we don't believe our season should be canceled. When you have Jim Harbaugh and you have Ryan Day and you have James Franklin, the 3 most successful coaches in the Big Ten right now, all coming out publicly and saying they support their players, when you have the President of the United States tweeting that he supports Trevor Lawrence and Justin Fields, when you have politicians from across the political spectrum, whether it was Nebraska Senator Ben Sasse, whether it was yesterday Ron DeSantis, the governor of Florida, on our own radio program, whether it is a variety of politicians out there all deciding to weigh in about whether or not college football should happen. There are crazy stories that seem impossible to believe. This is a lot like what happened with realignment, where every rumor seems categorically insane, and then some of them end up being true, which is how we ended up with Nebraska in the Big Ten and Colorado in the Big 12 and Missouri in the SEC and Texas A&M to the SEC. All these different, Maryland to the Big Ten, all these different wild stories that seemed like they may or may not have been true, Pittsburgh and Syracuse, and we had a huge earthquake. And it was like a slow-moving earthquake back in the time of realignment because there were so many discussions about it. So a lot of you out there, I would say the number one question I have gotten from people is, hey, Clay, what in the world's actually going on? And so I'm going to do my best to explain to you what I believe to be going on right now as it involves college football and whether there will be a season. And as a preliminary, I'm being straightforward with you guys. I am a huge college football fan. I'm not pretending to be anything other than an advocate for the college football season to be played, whether you are a Big 12, Big 10, SEC, ACC, or Pac-12 fan. I know everybody has different favorite teams, in the Power 5 conferences, and Notre Dame as well, for that matter, and a lot of other schools also. I'm in favor of all of them playing. And I've been straightforward about that, but I just want to make that crystal clear as we start here. I am a college football fan. I am not trying to pick sides other than being on the side of I believe college football should be played. Just like I believe kids need to be back in school, K through kindergarten through all the way through college and grad school and everything else. And just like I believe it's time to start to get back to work if you are young and healthy, those are my opinions, okay? So, what I believe to have been going on, let me take you back in time a little bit. Last week, on Wednesday afternoon, I got a bunch of calls from people, and I've been optimistic about college football taking place for some time. And the calls that I got on Wednesday with people that I was talking to, suddenly they turned dark, in that there were a lot of people who had been reasonably optimistic to that point that suddenly started to say, hey, I'm not as optimistic about college football happening. That was on the day that the Big Ten released their schedule, a day that theoretically should have been one where there was a lot of positivity out there. That continued on Thursday and Friday, continued to have calls and talks with a lot of different people. And by the way, these are people that work in the college football universe, that are friends of mine. I obviously work in the college football universe. If you listen to this program, you know a lot of the people that I talk to. And we all chat because this is what we do for a living. It's not like I'm trying to break news on these stories or anything else. I'm just trying to be as well informed as I can for purposes of coming and talking to you on the radio. Now, I was told over the weekend what Dan Patrick said on his radio program on Monday. I didn't say it on my radio show because I was told that it was, super top secret. And I didn't have it from enough people to go out. I'm not personally in the business, by and large, of breaking stories anymore. We're in the business of breaking stories at Outkick. But the report that Dan Patrick had, and by the way, we will break and continue to break a lot of stories at Outkick. I encourage you to make sure that you're checking that site every single day. And obviously, Jason Whitlock writes there as well, and he'll be joining us shortly. But I had heard that there was a vote, and that the same thing that Dan Patrick said, that Iowa and Nebraska were the only two schools that said, hey, we want to play. And since then, there has been a report that that's not true. The Big Ten is denying it. I tend to side with Dan Patrick again because I heard from reliable people before Dan Patrick said it on Monday, the exact same thing that he said. Literally the exact same thing. And so I trust Dan Patrick to talk to good people like I talk to myself to talk to good people. So I tend to believe that his report had a lot more truth in it than it did falsehood. Now, it could also have been in some way like a trial balloon, right? We're going to toss it up and see what happens. And the Big Ten expected for there to be more support. Regardless, since that happened, Ohio State's president has come out and said they won't vote for it. So there are a lot of uncertainties here. What is not uncertain is that Trevor Lawrence and Justin Fields and all the other coaches that got involved in the We Want to Play hashtag have changed fundamentally the conversation around whether college football takes place this fall or not. And that conversation has now taken so many different twists and turns. What I believe, based on people that I talked to, the Big Ten wanted to happen was they were effectively trying to bully everyone else into following their lead and canceling. But the Big Ten was like the boy who had the ball, if you remember playing when you were a kid, and if they weren't happy with the way the game went, they were just going to take the ball and go home, but they thought everybody else would have to stop playing too. What they did not anticipate, I believe, is for there to be so many other people out there, players, coaches, administrators, fans, boosters, people in prominent position in college athletics who fundamentally rejected the idea of canceling the college football season right now. And so, what I believe to be happening is everybody's going back to their corners and trying to figure out what the votes are and what the fallout will be. Now, think about this for a minute. One of the people who are getting yanked around here the most are the college football players, because they, on Wednesday of last week, if they were Big Ten players, were told, hey, this is the schedule you're going to play. If they are SEC players, they were told on Friday evening, hey, here's your 10-game schedule. And then by the weekend, all of a sudden, everybody's like, oh, we got to cancel the season. This is a fundamental failure, I believe, if you want to point a finger at anybody, of Kevin Warren, the Big Ten commissioner. Now, I don't know Kevin Warren. He is in his first year effectively as Big Ten commissioner. This is a tough situation to jump into. He's not Jim Delaney, who did this for decades. And I believe as a result, his leadership has been profoundly inconsistent. And getting everybody aligned on an issue like this is incredibly challenging. But this is why the SEC made the decisions that they did. The SEC said, hey, wait a minute. We're not going to start our season until September 26th. Why did they do that? Because the SEC believes that when college kids get back on campus, there is going to be an upsurge in the number of coronavirus infections because all those college kids are going to be back on campus in close proximity to each other. Given that they are going to start to arrive on campus this week and next week at many different places, the expectation is that surge will happen in August, and then the hope is it can begin to decline by the time we get close to Labor Day, which is when the SEC wants to begin practice so they could begin playing on September 26th. In other words, they're trying to avoid all of the media panic from the, my God, look at all these infection stories. Now, positive story. Notre Dame conducted tests of all of its incoming students, and 99.7% of all the students they tested were negative. That is, only roughly 0.3% of incoming students at Notre Dame were positive for the coronavirus. Those students theoretically will be isolated, treated until they are no longer infectious, and in theory, Notre Dame would then be able to start on-campus life with zero infections among students. Now, the challenge, as you can well imagine, is kids are going to go to bars, kids are going to go to restaurants, kids are going to go off campus, some of them are going to get sick, and then other players, other students, and maybe players will also get sick, depending on how much risk is undertaken by these students. But that at least is a very strong positive start for a school like Notre Dame to have a very limited number of cases. What do I believe is going to happen, likely to happen going forward? I think the SEC wants to continue to buy more time. That's what SEC Commissioner Greg Sankey, who has come on this show quite a bit and talked with you guys, has said has been the advice to him since this all started. Take as much time as you can. The SEC wants for the NFL to start play. I think they would like to see high school start to play. I think they would like to see the NFL and Major League Baseball and the NBA all continue to play so they can put forward the best possible practices to make everybody else safe. Same thing in the ACC, same thing in the Big 12. Look, everybody's goal is to have as few students get sick as possible and as few athletes get sick as possible as well. So this is a story that is going to be wild to follow. There are going to be a lot of twists and turns. I would encourage you to follow me on Twitter at Clay Travis because we're going to be on top of it. I would encourage you to go follow Outkick at Outkick because we're going to be all over it too. We are going to be covering this story better than almost anybody else in all of sports because we are in favor of college football playing. We might lose the battle over whether or not college football is going to happen, but I've got to tell you, sometimes even if you lose, it's important the battles that you fight. I'm always going to be in favor of college athletes on scholarship being able to play for the rest of my life, including now and 20 years from now, figuring out a way to make sure that as many kids as possible are able to use their college scholarships to the best advantage they can on college campuses.